we unfortunately had a bad tornado that came through the city of Little Rock. So I kind of went from not buying anything to buying basically everything I get my hands on. There was just a lot of buildings that had been almost completely destroyed, basically, like nobody else was going to touch these things. I had pulled a $275,000 remodel permit, but I didn't have a contractor's license. So he called me and I told him the situation. He said, I agree, technically, you don't need a contractor's license, but just get one because we're going to keep calling you, bugging you about it.
I love the build to rent model, especially when you're building brand new stuff like that. I mean, that's easy to rent. People love it. People love not having somebody above them or below them. Those townhouses, you're going to do really well with that.
Almost every time I've had these major mistakes where I've bought something was way over budget, it's just like, as long as I can get to that finish line, rent it out, it kind of heals those mistakes.
Welcome to another edition of Lifetime Cash Flow through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Cleef, and I am thrilled that you're here. And I know you're going to get tremendous value from the gentleman I'm interviewing today. His name's Chase Calhoun. He hails out of Little Rock, Arkansas, which is close to Memphis. And if you heard me talk about Memphis, you know that I was dogging Memphis before we started recording. If you're from Memphis, I love you, but you know too, okay? And anyway, Chase is a real estate investor. He's a GC, general contractor. He's got a significant contracting business, and he's making some stuff happen. So we're going to have some fun today. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you were telling me quite a bit already, and I'll probably have you restate some of it, but why don't you talk about your background and why real estate? Oh, I see you got Rich Dad Poor Dad on here, which a lot of people started from. Yeah. Okay, well, give us your story.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. So I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area in California originally, and I had wanted to get started in real estate investing back in 08, 9, and 10 when, in hindsight being 2020.
Wanted to or did?
Wanted to.
Oh, crap.
And unfortunately, I let other people talk me out of buying the $100,000 houses in the East Bay that are probably now worth, $700,000-$800,000 a pop. And so fast forward a couple years later, I was ready to get started, but it didn't make sense there anymore. And out of state real estate investors become a very common mainstream thing now, but back then I hadn't even heard of that or didn't even know that was an option. So I actually chose to move somewhere where it made more sense to invest. I was working for a company at the time on a contract basis, and I just basically said, hey, where would you be willing to send me and pay me the same amount of money? And so they rattled off a bunch of different places, and Little Rock, Arkansas was one of them. Thank God it wasn't Memphis, Tennessee.
Right.
But it was like, well, I don't know. And I checked Zillow, and you could buy houses back then for almost nothing, and they were renting out for decent money. So we bought our first single family house, sight unseen, packed up and moved to California, and then basically did a live-in flip in that first rental
you moved
property.
In it? You married?
I'm married now, and my wife now we just kind of started dating back then, and so she.
So you were just dating when you threw her in a house.
But that's not something that I would recommend. It also wasn't in the best neighborhood, and so we weren't there too long. I think it took us about 3 months to get it remodeled, and we were fortunate that we were able to buy a house in a little bit nicer part of town and rent that one out. Still own that house today. It was our first rental. Since then, I've kind of specialized in single family and small multifamily. So we've only done up to 12 unit buildings. But it really kind of early on, I think, just because the opportunity, specialized in heavy rehab stuff. So
when did you get your general contractor? Was it part of your previous job, or did you go out and do it once you started investing?
Yeah, not at all. So it was, I got the experience by investing and doing these heavy rehabs, and I was a few rehab projects in. It was actually I had bought a 4-unit townhome, so basically a fourplex that had caught on fire. So it was a burnout, completely almost completely destroyed.
Right.
And in Little Rock, at least back then, they're a lot more strict now, but back then, if you owned the building, you could pull the permits and GC it yourself without having a license.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, but I think somebody from the state licensing board was just checking permits that had been pulled and then looking for licenses. And so he saw that I had pulled a $275,000 remodel permit, but I didn't have a contractor's license. And so he called me and just kind of wanted to know what was going on with that. And I told him the situation. He said, I agree, technically, you don't need a contractor's license, but just get one because we're going to keep calling you, bugging you about it. And so that's when I decided to get licensed. I initially had no interest in doing customer work. We do a little bit for other people occasionally. And it's been more recently that we've leaned into the customer side of things. But it started there. So we did several heavy rehabs like that, and then we started basically testing ground up new construction, what I call build to rent. So we built a couple single family rentals. It's been a little bit over 4 years ago now, and so it's something
and that went well.
Intrigued me. It went well. It was interesting. There was more upside on the heavy rehabs, just because a lot of times we were getting them so distressed and so cheap. But what really intrigued me over the first couple of years was the non-existent maintenance capex. And so I'd go, I should probably track this a lot better. Some people track it really well, but it was usually when I went to go do my taxes, I would see how much I was spending on maintenance and capex on the portfolio, and then I would get to these new constructions, and there was
nothing,
zero,
because they're brand new.
It was brand new, warranties on stuff, and so good tenants, higher rents than expected in the neighborhoods, and we'd fetch these higher rents because we do kind of nicer rehabs on. When we get them so distressed, we could do nicer rehabs on the distressed properties as well. But
let me circle back to something real quick.
Yeah.
So did you have some previous construction experience?
I had,
before you got your GC?
I had little to no construction experience.
Because they usually require that.
Yeah, so I had little to no construction experience when I moved. I had some paint. My dad was a painting contractor, and I worked for him for several years when I lived in California when I was younger.
And you could lean on that for the...
I was able to lean on that, but honestly, we did several rehab projects. I GC'd several heavy rehab, like full gut remodel projects on my own as the owner and the permit puller.
In Arkansas?
Or not in Arkansas.
Okay.
So when I moved there, from the time I got licensed to the time I moved there to the time I got licensed was probably about 3 years.
Okay.
And so I had 3 years in several heavy rehab projects under my belt.
So you were able to show those and show what you did. Because, I mean, I would recommend anybody listening, if you can get your GC license. I'm trying to get my boy to get one. My son who moved here because he's having a baby. I'm very excited. I'm going to be a grandpa here in December. But anyway... if you can get your GC license, awesome. But I know that they have the requirement that you've got to have some level of experience.
Yeah.
They're not going to let you, deal with it. But,
absolutely.
So please continue. So you've been doing some. You started with some little build to rent. Please bring us current. I mean,
yes, we've done build to rents. I went into I think it was 2023, kind of intending to slow down on buying just because everything was looking weird, kind of across the board. And then we unfortunately had a really bad tornado that came through the city of Little Rock and like nice parts of the city of Little Rock. So I kind of went from not buying anything to buying basically everything I get my hands on. There was just a lot of buildings that had been almost completely destroyed, basically, like nobody else was going to touch these things. But since I had the experience with the burnouts and these heavy rehabs leading up to that, we ended up buying a ton of those. And
fantastic. What an opportunity.
Yeah, there was like one street where we bought that I had done that original burnout where I was telling you where I got my contractor's license.
Same street? Wow.
It was that same street, so that building was directly hit by the tornado.
Wow.
But I bought 4 or 5 buildings, like fourplexes on that same street, so across the street, catty corner from there. Literally looked like bombs that exploded inside.
I had a 101 unit in Beaver Creek, Ohio, a suburb of Dayton. And they're like, hey, we just got hit by a tornado. So I flew up the next day, and I'm driving down the street, and I'm like, there's no damage. Then I see my place. I'm like, holy crap.
It's wild. If you've never seen it in person,
it was funny. I tell the story. There was a woman, all 101 families had to move because they shut off the water and the power and everything else. And there was a woman bringing her clothes out because she was moving. She had her trunk open. And I said, were you here? And she said, yeah, my son was, excuse me, my son was upstairs sleeping. My son was upstairs. I was sleeping downstairs on the couch. His phone went off, thank God, with the alert system. By the time he got downstairs and woke me up, his bedroom was gone. And I look up and holy shit, it's just a gaping hole where his bedroom was. He would have died for sure. Yeah, luckily nobody died in this one. We had 2 people had to have surgery. No kids got hurt either, thank God. But yeah, it's crazy what a hurricane or what a tornado can do. It's crazy.
It's wild. So we bought several of those, and it took us a while to work through all those projects, and then more recently we've been ramping up on the new construction build to rents.
So you said, before we started recording, you talked about a 52 unit you're doing the entitlement on right now, where you're gonna build to rent, correct?
Yes.
These are going to be duplexes.
Yeah. So and I say duplexes. I think a lot of people have this like a negative connotation of duplexes. They think like the little just single story rectangle buildings that are
crap.
2-1s.
Yeah, they're ugly as hell.
And so we're building nice townhomes. They're going to be 2-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Nice.
1-car garage, like nicer looking duplexes. And so it'll be 26 duplexes, 52 units. And so that's going, again, the initial application's been submitted, so it's going to zoning approval.
So my question to you is, before we start recording, you haven't done any syndication yet, and you haven't really raised money. You've kind of done it out of HIP National Bank, correct?
Yeah.
What about this 52 unit? How are you funding that?
So that one, I'm doing it with a JV partner. And
Okay.
So it's not, I'm not syndicating it, but in a way, I had a single
So
partner
he's
on
putting
that
up the
that's
money.
bringing the money. And
Okay.
and he's a developer builder, so he does the same thing I do. He's done build to rent developments himself before, but he's in a different area. In the market he's in, he's had the fortunate situation where he's still having a lot of success building and selling homes.
Oh, wow.
But he's having a heck of a time finding build to rent projects that he can get through entitlements. He's
I
tried
see.
several times. He just hasn't been able to take another one all the way through entitlements. So we're going to partner on this one, do this one together. I've got another one that's basically a failed subdivision. It was still lingering from like 0809, where it had been developed in 0809.
Meaning roads put in and infrastructure, but
and
houses weren't built.
There was a couple houses, so like 10 houses built, and then it failed and went through bankruptcy and was tied up for a long time. And so we bought that.
You bought the subdivision.
So
How many lots?
45 lots total.
Wow, nice.
We thought that it was within land use density recommendations and everything like that, so the lots were plenty big enough. We didn't think we'd have any issues getting it entitled for high-end 2-unit townhomes. Unfortunately, the Little Rock's is still a small city, and there's politics there, and if you're not on the right side of the politics, that stuff can get shut down real quick, which was the case here. Luckily, it was one of those things where it was kind of more just being blessed and a little lucky, and that as soon as we got shut down for not being able to get the duplexes approved, the state passed an ADU by right law that has recently gone into effect. So we're pivoting from not going to be able to do duplexes, building single family houses. To me, doesn't make as much sense down there right now. But we're going to do single family houses with attached ADU units. They look very similar to a duplex, but there's some.
They basically are a duplex, but you're calling it an ADU.
They're ADUs with attached.
Single
family homes with attached ADUs. But
Okay. In case this gets,
they're two. They're 2 unit. They're 2
Got it.
units, and so one will be. Basically, think that nicer townhome that we're going to build in this subdivision. 1 unit will be the 2-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. The other,
single story.
It'll be single story, 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. So it'd be cool because it'll give us a unit like mix.
Yeah, you have somebody. You get somebody that doesn't like stairs. And there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, when I built my house here on the beach across the bay here, you couldn't build new. You had to
Save
build
something.
Yeah. And of
So
course,
it's like 2 walls.
basically, there wasn't even a wall. I mean, it was like there wasn't like nothing there, and they called it a remodel. I'm like, okay, a bit of a stretch, but well, that's exciting, man. I mean, the build to rent model. I love the build to rent model, especially when you're building brand new stuff like that. I mean, that's easy to rent. People love it. People love not having somebody above them or below them. Those townhouses, you're going to do really well with that. And so what's next? What's next after that? You're going to keep doing those? You're going to
at least for right now, we're going to be pushing real hard on the build to rents as I start to build out my business, this construction company, and we're vertically integrated, so we're in-house property management as well.
Oh, you're managing yourself.
We are.
Okay.
Fortunately, Little Rock's one of those places. I'm sure with Memphis, it's hard to find good
Oh, yeah.
management.
No.
So it's like for us to be successful at it, it's almost a requirement, in my opinion.
And it's not a huge city either, so
it's very doable.
Yeah.
And it just makes things. It's a little bit more set up on the front end, but it makes things better on the back end. But we're probably really going to continue to push on these build to rents. I wouldn't be opposed to doing, and I've got a good friend of mine who's out of Nashville, and they do ground up new construction multifamily, and so I wouldn't be opposed to looking at that in the future as well. But the build to rents, it just seems there's a big demand. So we've got some guys who are in Little Rock and have been doing this for a really, really long time, and they build amazing high-end Class A new construction multifamily.
build to rent.
No, Class A multifamily.
Oh, multifamily. Okay.
And so there's already people that are doing that really well where we're at. There's nobody that's doing build to rent. I think there's, fortunately, unfortunately, I think we're going to continue to move into a renters society. I think a lot of people want to rent, but there's still going to be there's going to be a need for the people who have outgrown the apartments and they want to rent a house or at least something that has the feel for a house. Then I think the build to rent, there's a big.
What you're describing in build to rent, I mean, you can build to rent anything, but what you're describing sounds really nice.
Yeah,
and very desirable.
Nice. Yeah. And for me, it's very scalable. So like if you were to say, hey Chase, I want you to, I'm gonna buy a bunch of crappy houses and we need you to rehab 50 of them. I just be like, thanks, but no thanks. It's a nightmare to do rehabs at some point.
Sure.
And the more, they can be very lucrative, but it's just a lot of challenges with those. The build to rent or new construction specifically is just much more scalable. So once we go in there and as we do more and more of them, it's like, especially when we're building the same product, subs and everything fall into line.
Yeah,
it's
it'll be easy.
It's just very scalable compared to buying and rehabbing, in my opinion.
Yeah, when you build the same thing over and over again, I mean, it just becomes seamless. Everybody knows what they're doing. There's no screw ups. There's no change orders. So we're seeing some crazy times right now. I want to kind of pivot for a second just because I'd like to, and I have not had a chance to do this publicly, I'd just like to talk about how horrified I was by this whole Charlie Kirk business. And just, it's a sad situation here in the United States. They literally just had the service for him yesterday. I don't know when this will go live, but I don't know what your thoughts are with that. But I know that and honestly, if you're watching me or listening to me and you're on the side that is happy that he got killed, please block me and leave my ecosystem because I don't have any use for you. But what are your thoughts on all that?
I think it's horrific, and I think it's very sad. And when I saw it, I saw it, and it made me sad.
Oh, it was horrible to see.
Somebody that, and I guess I didn't follow him very closely, so I almost had to dig into it a little bit more. But everything I had ever heard from him was a positive message,
right?
And even though he was very clear what he wasn't for or okay with,
opposed,
he was very respectful in the way that he dealt with people and presented his argument. And that was just my initial reaction, that's the only thing I'd ever seen. And the fact that he was killed because he spoke what he believed in, and a lot of his message, some of this was after the fact, just listening to him a little bit more, but he, I'm a Christian, I believe in God, and he was too, but he was very outspoken about it, but he did it in a very respectful and eloquent way, and just anything I'd seen, never in a hateful way. So the fact that people are so negative about it, it just makes me a little bit scared, a little bit sad for our society. It's almost that people have lost a common sense or their ability to reason at all. And
it's a common sense thing.
Sides of stuff. And so it was interesting to me because I made a post about it and just kind of along those lines that I hadn't really followed him much, but it was sad that had happened.
Did you get any hate?
A little bit. And it kind of caught me off guard because the whole thing I posted was that it was sad that it happened, and it's easy, like for me, to get really pissed off about that happening and where our country's kind of gone to. But instead of getting mad about it, we should all try to focus on just being the best kind of version and example of ourselves that we can, and just try to, have a positive influence on people. And that's what I posted. And
that's what he was doing.
I had some people make negative comments about that. And it surprised me, and it kind of pissed me off a little bit. But again, trying to just not engage with people like that, because people that are going to be like that, it's just there's no point of me even talking to them. That's not who I want to be friends with, and that's not my audience. And it's a sad situation. Yeah, no,
there's such a divide in this country right now, and I'll tell you, I don't care what side you're on. Being happy that somebody got killed, I have no patience for. And I mean, I literally saw one of his most prolific critics, a guy online, this kid online that was dogging him all the time, literally in tears, genuine sobbing over hearing that this happened. And that's the right approach. That's the right reaction as far as I'm concerned. And the thing with Charlie that I admired was, you're right, he gave everyone an opportunity to speak. I saw his interaction with a trans person, and he was loving and caring with that person. And so that we live in the greatest country on earth because you can have open debate. And again, he was never, from what I saw, he was never disrespectful. I mean, he would joke sometimes if somebody had some crazy freaking thing they were saying, he would be joking about it. But I thought it was horrific, and everybody I know thought it was as well. But I hope honestly that they're talking about it being a turning point. That's the name of his organization. We're seeing a lot of groundswell underneath that possibly, and I hope that's the case. I hope that, that more people. I mean, I think he's got some big shoes to fill. The people have big shoes to fill because I think he was like a savant. He was just so brilliant as well. I don't know, you didn't watch him as much as I did, but he was just brilliant. And my ex said, I think he's a savant because he would have these mannerisms when he's talking and be very, animated. But regardless, I hope that more people pick up that torch and continue that, because the other piece was the impact he had on kids in these colleges, and it was a positive impact, and debate is a positive thing. It's like we live in the greatest country on earth. We're not in, Saudi or somewhere like that where you get killed for speaking your mind, So anyway, thanks for humoring me on that. I wanted to publicly say something. I did a little post too, and I got a lot of hate from my post, but hadn't talked about it on the podcast.
It's just unfortunate. He was very well spoken, and he had a very good positive message. The things he was speaking were not. I mean, some of the stuff I've listened to him is him giving advice about being a father, and so I've got like a young daughter, and so I can relate to his advice on being a father or marriage or being a young man and what it takes to like get ahead in this world instead of the whole woe is me type thing. And so it's just unfortunate that they're. One, that would happen, but two, that reaction just, it blows my mind. It does make me a little bit.
Me too. Pissed me off. It pissed me off, but I got to tell you, it's like, are you kidding me? It's like, come on, at least be respectful. You can feel a certain way, and
I think you can even. I mean, again, I don't think what he was saying was bad. First of all, but I think you could be even enemies with somebody. I could have somebody say something to me that like is just horrible, but at the same time, I would never wish something ill of them like that. And if something bad happened to them, I'm not going to celebrate that, especially with a wife and children and stuff. I think the people that are having that reaction are just, they've lost it.
I think they're broken, candidly. I think they're mentally broken. Because his wife, I guess, was 10 feet away when it happened,
and kids,
kids too. Yeah, I mean, that's it can't even unimaginable as a parent. So. Well, thanks for humoring me on that, guys, for listening to all that. I know it's probably a little ad nauseum at this point because it's been all over everywhere, but I had to say something about it. All right, we're gonna shift gears now. Let's talk about something positive. I noticed on your bio, number one, you're in GoBundance.
Yes, sir.
And you're also quite the athlete. So speak about that a little bit.
Yeah, I would say the two are probably kind of related a little bit because you hang around a bunch of guys who are doing crazy stuff and make it seem normal. Let me can't help it.
Let me interrupt. So I got invited to GoBundance literally, probably 8 years ago, and I've been so busy. I mean, that's my story. It's a story.
You should come check it out one of these days.
It's been brought up several times over the last 8 years, and I guess it's an amazing group of men.
It is.
But anyway, please continue. So
so it's a group. A lot of the guys in there are entrepreneurs. A bunch of them are real estate related. Not all of them though. There's high W-2 or high paid W-2 guys and people from kind of all different areas, but a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of real estate based stuff. I've been in there for several years now, so
give it a little back. I mean, not background. Talk about what you do, because just give it a little framework so people understand what it is.
For GoBundance specifically.
Yeah, GoBundance first. Yeah.
So it's a group of guys who I would say want to be better in all aspects of their life. So you have a lot of groups like, Tiger 21 and some of these other ones that are just for high net worth people or successful business people, but maybe not so many that are more well-rounded. So GoBundance is, there's some business stuff and finance stuff that'll be spoke, within GoBundance, but it's more about like kind of all aspects of your life. So your health, your family, your friendships, your faith, giving back, all that kind of stuff. So I would say it's a little bit more well-rounded, similar to other organizations or groups where they'll have conferences and they'll bring in speakers and stuff like that. But again, it'll be a mix, so it won't just be all business. They'll have a business speaker and then somebody speaking about fitness or health, and or they may have smaller events where it's just being, I did one recently where it was just leadership, and the one before that was just about health. And so it's a good group of guys. And again,
How long have you been in it?
Since 2021, so
Oh, wow.
a while now.
Wow.
And so you have accountability pods within that, where you have almost like smaller groups of guys that get together on a regular basis, and it's just kind of accountability stuff. So what are you working on right now, whether it's business or health or whatever, and how can we, what are you going to do to move the ball forward? How can we hold you accountable? They have something called a one sheet, which is kind of like a structured mix between a goal setting worksheet and just kind of tracking some of your stats like a baseball card. So whether it's, vertical earned income, passive income, net worth, that kind of stuff. But it's also, body fat percentage and relationship goals and all that kind of stuff. So it's a mix of everything.
Nice.
And then, the triathlon thing. Fitness is always something that was kind of a struggle for me and something I wanted to make priority. And so over the last couple of years, it's like one of those, I have different pods too. One of them's like, it's just developers, and that's all we're talking about mainly is developers. And one's a lot of property management. And I ended up in one that was a lot of guys that are in super good shape. So one of them was a former Ironman athlete and coach. And one of them was training for a half Ironman. And so I got signed up a couple years ago, and I did my first half Ironman. And since then I've done a couple of them, a couple more. And then just recently I did, so this year in the spring I did a half Ironman, and then I trained up and just completed a full Ironman. And in GoBundance,
where was it?
And in GoBundance style, somebody gave me the recommendation. They're like, hey, if you're going to do it, you should do it somewhere that's badass, like a bucket list type trip. Coupled with, if you're going to spend all this time training, you should do it somewhere cool where your wife's looking forward to it, because you're going to be gone a bunch. But we did it it was in Thun, Switzerland.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
And when was it?
It was the 24th, so it was about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, was it cold already?
The weather was moderate. The lake that it was in was a glacier-fed
Oh, good
lake.
God. You
And
swam
so
in a glacier lake?
The lake was cold. So that caught me a little bit off. And we were I was in full wetsuits were required because it was so cold.
Of course.
But it still surprised me a little bit.
Wow.
coming from training in
And that
Arkansas.
makes it so much harder to swim in a wetsuit, too. Good Lord. That's restrictive.
And it's the distances are pretty wild. So I've done the halves, but it was a weird feeling because you swim out a couple hundred yards and you hang a right. And then basically you go down halfway, you go out a little bit farther, and then you come all the way back. And when I went out there and swam out and kind of turned to the right, and I looked up initially, like you physically can't even see the halfway point. It's so far away.
Wow.
And so it gives you a little bit.
Well, congratulations, brother, because that's a real, and GoBundance inspired that for you.
Yeah, well, it's a bunch.
This is kind of like a sales pitch for GoBundance,
but
by the way, I don't get anything for this. I just have heard good things about it for almost a decade.
So there's a bunch of guys in there that have done full Ironmans. It's just not that uncommon for people. So you talk to guys. So a good friend of mine now, we recently started doing a podcast. My friend that I'm on the podcast with, I was having lunch with. We were actually at a MultiFamily event in Seattle about a year ago, and I just finished my first half Ironman. I was training to do my second half Ironman. I was having lunch with him. And he looked me dead in the eye, and he's like, it doesn't count until you do a full one, right? And I'm like, come on, man. Have you done one? And he's like, I did one 2 years ago. And I'm like, well, okay.
There you go. There you go.
So as you hang around with a bunch of guys who that's just a normal thing, and it's like you kind of end up.
That's cool. Now that ship has sailed for me. My knees are shot. I ride this gay elliptical bicycle around the neighborhood to the amusement of my neighbors.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's the gayest thing
you'd
you've
be
ever
surprised. There was a guy at that race that I did. He was 75 years old.
75.
And he finished the cutoff is like midnight, and I think he finished like a few minutes before the cutoff. But he made it 75 years old.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. No, that's
don't
sell
yourself short.
I'm going to Tijuana again for stem cells here in 2 weeks. The place Joe Rogan talks about. I'm going to CPI Institute again. A little shout out to them, man. That's been incredible. I'll tell you guys. Let me shift gears for a minute on biohacking, because I was talking on social media. I've called it the butt capades, because I literally my ass, there was a muscle called the piriformis in your underneath your glute, and I could barely move. I literally couldn't walk 30 feet without being in excruciating pain, and I discovered that I had a pinched nerve in my back. And I went and got PRP, platelet-rich plasma, here in Sarasota. Within a week, it was gone. I'm completely healed. And I literally was immobilized for a month. And if I'd have gone to a surgeon, they would have cut me, okay? And instead, I got some injections, and I'm great. And, I went to CPI Institute about 90 days ago for my knees, and they've greatly improved. I'm dying to see the MRIs, because they do another MRI on your follow-up. But But I'm going to go there again, get that done. So I don't know, maybe I can run again. I mean, I ran for decades, and what happened was I was doing leg extensions. Where you're sitting and you're all the pressure's on your knees. You're sitting and you're kicking up your feet up. And I don't recommend that to anybody. Actually, if you're going to do that, do leg presses instead, because you're using your whole leg, but your knees aren't made for that kind of weight. But I heard them both pop when I did it. I was doing too much weight. I heard them both pop. That didn't hurt, actually. It hurt once I started running again. But anyway, so biohacking, I mean, I don't know if that's classified as biohacking, but I'm a huge believer in PRP, platelet-rich plasma, and stem cells now.
I haven't done the stem cells yet. And again, going back to the whole GoBundance thing, it's
right.
like having dinner one night with a guy who he runs a stem cell clinic out of Costa Rica, so it's very similar to the one in Tijuana.
Yeah.
But learned a lot from him about it. And he was a big proponent of, like, even if you don't need it right now, come down,
just
have
do the
them,
IV.
Well, they can pull your stem cells and freeze them for when you need them later.
Oh, interesting.
And so that way they're available to you then. And he's like, it's better, doing, getting them harvested when you're 39 versus older is not a bad idea.
How old are you?
I'm 39.
Oh, you're 39.
And so
sure, I've got socks that have 2 decades. Yeah, no, at least a decade on you.
the triathlon, those stuff. So I've got a bad family history of, like, cardiovascular disease. So I've got the bad cholesterol that can cause the plaque buildup. And my dad's had, like, an extreme problem with the plaque buildup. And it's, again, through that group, I recently went down and did a preventative heart scan in Texas. That, it's wild now because they do a full MRI of your heart, basically, and they use AI. They run it through AI, and they can basically look inside all of your arteries and stuff, and they give you a percentage. The biggest thing is, like, you can take blood work tests, but they can't necessarily, like, always identify the plaque buildup.
I've done calcium score.
So the calcium score is, like, I guess, a really low level of that.
Okay.
But this heart scan can actually look and see if you're starting to get that soft plaque build up, so they can get ahead of it and try to treat it in advance. And again, it's something my father's really, I mean, he's had some severe, like, full clogged arteries and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm very high risk for that. But again, with all this triathlon training and stuff, I did that heart scan, and it was literally, like, even the doctor was surprised with that bad.
How good your heart looked?
How good my heart.
Yeah,
looked.
I'll tell you. I've got my father had 3 brothers. And the only one still alive was a jogger. Okay, he's in his 90s now, and he's the only one still alive. Everyone else is gone. No, I'm a big proponent. Now, the other thing that I've learned fairly recently is that sauna use, regular sauna use, cuts your risk of a cardiac event by 50%.
50%. Just by doing
so I don't know. When you go out, you can see my sauna on the bay here. I'm blessed. I've got this beautiful infrared sauna with a commanding view of the whole bay. But I was just, in fact, it's just funny. My ex is here for a few days because she's moving and she's got stuff here. And she's like, "You haven't been doing the sauna, have you?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I've been slacking on there." But yeah, so that's something else. I don't know if you do that or not.
Yeah, I try to. Right? I probably don't do it. I know you have to do it for a certain length of time.
It's 15 minutes, 20 max. But and I've got my cold plunge out there. I did do that this morning, so that was
the cold plunge is no joke.
Oh, it's awesome, man! Yeah. Freaking love it. Yeah,
when I was swimming for the Ironman, they had a cold plunge by the pool, and so I was better about doing them. But that's uncomfortable every single time you get in it. Doesn't matter how.
Oh yeah, no, you can't think about it. You just have to do it. You just I just force it not to think about it as I'm walking out there in my Speedo, and I don't I just don't think about it. So one of the things I like to ask when I have my boot camps and I've got my panelists on answering questions for my participants is talk about a time you got your butt kicked, a seminar, I call them, and the lesson. And I know that you've got a full menu of them to choose from. Anybody that's in real estate does. Talk about a doozy and maybe the lesson in it, if anything comes to mind.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of those things where if you're actively investing in real estate, it's going to happen so often and in so much, it's almost hard to narrow it down.
I know, right? Exactly. Yeah. What do I choose?
Well, one thing that comes to mind to me is, and probably because we did specialize in a lot of these rehab stuffs, but it was just early on. Underestimating the scope of work and the budgets for these rehab projects.
Right.
So that's something I personally screwed up often and over again, and I see it a lot with new investors. And it can even be on smaller rehab stuff, but maybe at larger scale because there's more units. But you can want things to be cheaper, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost what it costs.
Right.
And you're just a whole lot better off being realistic on the front end, what something's going to cost, and then not getting yourself kind of tight or in trouble on a deal or on a project. And so I would say that's something
that's huge. That's huge.
Early on, and on some of my small multifamilies, because we did heavy rehab multifamily projects, but it's like I would go in, I'd want to be able to do a full gut rehab on the units at $30,000 a unit, but it's just not. It wasn't realistic. And I should have just been upfront and upfront, so I didn't get surprised. More funding in place and not have that extra stressor there. And then I guess the flip side to that is, I would say, is the cool thing about real estate. As long as you're still buying good deals and you're operating them well, it's wild to me. And I haven't been doing this a fraction as long as you have, but just in the time I've been doing it, how a little bit of time kind of heals.
Time heals all wounds. Yeah.
It's just with real estate, as long as you're buying good deals and you're doing things the right way and you're not ripping people off. It's just if you can give it some time. Almost every time I've had these major mistakes where I've bought something was way over budget, it's just like, as long as I can get to that finish line, rent it out, it's just, it kind of heals those mistakes.
Yep.
And none of them have really, thank God, been too big of a deal.
Business threatening, thank God. It's not business threatening. Those are the ones you want to worry about. Well, so let's end with this. I think, the people, there might be some guys listening or even ladies listening that maybe have some construction background. Maybe they're, plumbing, electrical, drywall, painting, roofing, whatever. And they're inspired by what you're doing with your GC license, where you're building to rent. And could you maybe give them some tips, any suggestions, or, anything you might share with them to encourage them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's extremely valuable to learn and to get into. And I think, at least this is how I learn stuff, and I think it's really important. But at the end of the day, I think it's important just to do it. And sometimes it's like, I look at it like I'm paying for an education. So the first ones I did not go nearly as well as the ones we're doing right now, right? Sure. And so sometimes I think you just got to kind of go for it and do it. With that said, if there's any way you could really lean on somebody who has the experience and kind of benefit from some of their experience in the road bumps the things they've learned the hard way, I'd highly recommend that. And I think especially with ground up new construction, it's a little bit easier to maybe find somebody that's got the experience to be willing to help. We're building a lot right now for other investors. We're not charging a ton or making a ton on any one of them. It's just a volume thing for us. It's allowing us to continue to scale what we're doing internally.
Keeps your subs busy.
It keeps our subs busy. It helps cover some of the overhead costs. And so it's like there's still meat on the bone in some of these new construction projects that we're doing for other investors. So if you could find somebody in your market who's willing to do that, even if your end goal is just to learn how to do it well so that you can kind of take it over and do it your own in the future, I'd say that's a great place to start. For me personally, I was fortunate that I happened to meet a home builder that I built a good relationship and rapport with, that when I went to build the new construction houses, I was able to lean on him heavily. Still was really scary. Right. It was still very stressful, and it's funny to me now because I look back now, and he thought I was nuts for buying these burned out fourplexes and rehabbing those. He's like, I don't know why you'd ever want to do that. And I was nervous to do the new constructions, and now looking back, I can see why. Once you get the hang of them, they're so much easier. Oh, sure, than to rebuild. But it is intimidating when you haven't done one. So I'd say if you have the construction experience, like trying to find a GC who's going to be upfront and honest about costs and not try to rip you off. Unfortunately, there's a lot of builders out there who are like, they try to sneak in their profits instead of being upfront about the profits. And so I just make sure that you're on the same page about what's hard costs and what's kind of profits that are being charged through the GC. But if you could find somebody with that experience and really lean on them to help you with the first couple, I'd say that's great.
Oh, that's a no-brainer. No, that's great advice, and that's the way it should be done. Well, listen, Chase, I really appreciate you coming down and coming on the show. Yeah. You've added incredible value. It's been a wide-ranging conversation that I've enjoyed immensely, and I appreciate you coming in here, bud.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.